My name is Ashley, and about a year ago, my boyfriend at the time almost took my life. Like all young women, or most, we want to find a meaningful relationship. I actually wasn't looking for it at the time and got pregnant when I was 18 years old and ended up marrying that person a couple of years later. The first relationship that I was in, I was young, and I think that I didn't know what love was. I felt it on the day that we got married, that it wasn't right. I shouldn't be here. I'm not ready for this, but I ignored my gut instinct and got married anyway. Unfortunately, he became verbally abusive at times, as well as physically abusive. I gave it everything that I had, and unfortunately, it didn't work out and I filed for divorce. The first relationship that I had when I got married, there were red flags. However, I didn't see them at the time. There was love bombing. There was a huge lack of empathy, a lack of support. The years went by and that's when I realized this is not a healthy relationship and I need to leave. I was with my ex-husband for about 7 years. When I was married with a young child and then 4 years later having a second daughter, doing all of the housework, being the one to always get up in the middle of the night, him not helping me with those things, not supporting me, it was very lonely. After I got divorced, it was difficult for a period of time to adjust to that. I decided to be on my own for a little bit, and then I was ready to move forward with my life, to find somebody, to find real love, real partnership. A friend of mine wanted to introduce me to somebody, and I agreed to that, and everything seemed great, went well at the beginning. He was always there for me. He was supportive. We rushed into things pretty quickly. About 3 months into that relationship, Tony got upset with me. I made the mistake of meeting up with an ex and kissed that individual. That's very out of my character, but people make mistakes. Tony was clearly very upset over this, but I thought it was something that we could work through. I went over to his place and his daughter went to bed. She was asleep in the other room. We started to get intimate and I was noticing that he was being very rough. He had asked me previously about anal sex and I had said no, and I ended up on my stomach, and his way of punishing me for what I did, the mistake that I made, was to anally rape me. I asked him to stop repeatedly, over and over and over again, and he didn't. And this was somebody that I believed loved me. And then he was sitting on the edge of the bed, crying, bawling his eyes out. And in that moment, I thought he was sorry. I thought he was sorry for what he did, and I stayed. He continued to be abusive, which resulted in me having back issues, hip issues. About a year and a half later, the relationship ended. He convinced me time and time again that he would get help, and I believed him. I was too forgiving. After being with Tony, I did take time to reflect. I went to therapy. I processed it. I did not want to ever be in a situation like that again. I realized one of the biggest red flags that something is off. If something is too good to be true, it probably is. That guy was not showing any faults. He was not admitting faults. There were no lies. There was no confrontation, no debating, nothing. I would assume that he would be diagnosed as either a psychopath or a sociopath. He has absolutely no remorse or empathy. I remember once when he was at my place and he was really upset, and I remember looking into his eyes and it was absolutely terrifying. It was like there wasn't a person there. After Tony, I again wanted to be in a relationship, and I met Scott. He was the only guy in my life I've ever hit on. I walked up to him at the club and gave him a hard time, danced with him on the dance floor. We very quickly got into a relationship. I noticed that something was off. He wasn't initiating sexual activity. I had a conversation with him about that, and I remember the tears running down his face when he shared with me what happened to him, the trauma that he had experienced earlier in his life. And I felt bad for him. We continued to see each other. I was the first person that he was with, and we had a really special bond. I got pregnant with my third daughter. A few months into that pregnancy, the arguing started, fighting started. I didn't realize that he was using hard drugs, and he started abusing me, hitting me, kicking me. He would bite me over and over and over again when I was pregnant. I stayed with him because he was the father of my daughter. I wanted that happy family. He had a very sweet side, a very loving side. I felt bad for him. I believed that his past trauma was a huge reason that he was hurting me, and that if he could only get help, the abuse would stop. It just got to the point where it was too much after I gave birth to my daughter, and he was barely there at the hospital. And the heartbreak from that relationship, the relationship with Tony, I got to a place where I didn't want to be alive anymore. And so I attempted to end it all. My youngest was a year old when I attempted to take my life. When I overdosed, I agreed to get help. And so I went to Origins in Texas, and I was there for 45 days. So I took a long break, 4 to 5 years. I was single, and in 2022, Corey reached back out. I had met Corey back in, I believe it was 2008. It was before I ended up in a relationship with Tony. And Corey and I hung out off and on for maybe a year. And I realized over time that he wasn't ready for a long-term relationship. He lived 2 hours away, wasn't willing to move, and it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted a long-term, happy, committed relationship. He had selfish tendencies. He didn't always take me on dates, was very selfish in intimate ways that people should not be selfish. I was not going to accept that any longer. And so I ended the relationship with him. After I was sexually assaulted by Tony, I reached back out to Corey. Corey was actually the guy that I met up with and kissed. Corey and I reconnected in 2022. He sent me an email. We ended up talking on the phone. He told me that, believe it or not, I actually got married. But then he proceeded to tell me that his ex-wife cheated on him, wasn't there for him. Playing that sympathy card, he said all of the right things. I had known him many years ago, and I thought this is a chance to reconnect with somebody that I had strong feelings for many years ago, and I had no idea what was going to happen. The relationship with Corey was your typical relationship at first. Outside of him being 2 hours away, we laughed together. We slow danced in my living room. We went to movies. We talked about getting married. I started noticing that his stories weren't lining up. And so I started to confront him. Sometimes he would admit to me the truth. He admitted that his ex-wife did not cheat on him, that he cheated on her, and he did that several times. He had told me that he lost touch with his biological son. I later found out that he gave up his rights to his biological son, and then a couple years later got married and adopted her 2 children. Knowing him many years ago, he had never physically hurt me. He didn't verbally abuse me, and I didn't see it coming. In the summer, I asked to see his phone, and he threw it at me, leaving a bruise on my leg. I was in shock. Is this really happening again? But I so badly did not want to accept that this guy could abuse me, that he could hurt me. So I stayed. I stayed in this relationship with this guy, and it escalated so fast to him choking me to the point where I felt like I couldn't breathe, like he might kill me. Him hitting me repeatedly in the face, in the head, in the arms, kicking me. And when I would have all these bruises on my body, bumps on my body, he would intentionally hit on those spots that already hurt. And then he would stand there in the shower with me, and he would put his head down, telling me that he couldn't look at the bruises, telling me how sorry he was, that he wasn't going to do it again. He wasn't going to hurt me again. And then he would be so kind, giving me massages, slow dancing, all these nice things that he would do. And I believed him. And then we would get in a disagreement and he would hurt me again. It's like he became comfortable with it, like he enjoyed it. I remember that he would walk up to me. I'd be sitting on the couch, for example. He would hit me several times or choke me. He would walk away and I would pull like a blanket up over me because I typically knew he's going to come back and do it again. And he would come back and I would flinch. And in this really callous way, he would say, "Why are you flinching?" And the cycle just would continue with him hurting me and being vicious and cruel, and then him calming me down. I would be laying there, bawling my eyes out, and he would come lay next to me and tell me to take these deep breaths. He wanted to be in control of everything. He could go from just beating the out of me and then finding out that my daughter was going to be coming home and be perfectly calm and sit there on the couch. One thing that I want people to know is that domestic violence is not about anger. It's about control. I have been looking back and I've been trying to figure out why I stayed. And I think there are different explanations for it. I think one is the manipulation that occurred and how he really convinced me that he was going to change. I knew that he wasn't going to change unless there was some miracle that he was going to attend the right classes and get the right type of help. It wasn't going to change. A part of me just gave up. I think that after being in several relationships and being abused, that maybe I thought, this is me. Like, there's something wrong with me. And I don't know how to function. I don't know how to be in a normal relationship. And this is my reality. My mind was wired that love and violence go together. I was still recovering from my hip surgery, and Corey had been abusive while I was recovering from surgery. We came over to my place, and I was at that point where I wasn't going to tolerate it anymore. I wasn't going to tolerate the abuse. He had been talking to another female, and I had told him that that made me uncomfortable, and he didn't respect that. He continued to talk to her. I knew that I couldn't trust him. He had told me that he was going to get help. He was going to move to be here with me. His story on that changed, and just, I knew that it was done. And so I confronted him on that, and we got into a really bad argument. He started to abuse me. I remember I was in my daughter's room. My daughter was not home at the time. I was on crutches, and I didn't even see it coming. He just slapped me really hard across the face, and then immediately said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you like that." I was sitting in the garage having a smoke, my terrible habit, and he walked up to me and hit me with both hands. He did that several times. It was over and over and over again. I started to feel nauseous, and I was desperate for one of my medications that helps with nausea. And I asked him to help me find those. I was kind of out of it. My head was hurting really bad. And so he did. He helped me find that medication. I took it and I laid down. I fell asleep, and I woke up maybe a couple hours later, and it didn't take long for me to realize that something was wrong. I will never forget the fear. It is something that it's so hard to describe. My eyes feeling like they were bulging out of my head. I could feel the shift because my brain had shifted from the brain bleed a little bit to one side, and I could feel that. I was disoriented, dizzy. I was so out of it. And I knew that I needed to go to the emergency room. And I told him that. And I remember him looking at my eyes, and he would have noticed that one of my pupils was bigger than the other. And I remember him saying, "Are you sure that you don't want to lay back down?" And I knew that I couldn't. He got my long sleeve shirt so it would cover up the bruises on my arms for the paramedics to not see those. And he called 911, I don't remember much of what he said to them. I don't remember them walking into my house. My next memory was them taking me down into the stairs, and it was strange because I felt like I was inside of my garage in their ambulance, which I wasn't. And I was slipping in and out of consciousness. The paramedics asking me, "Who hurt you? How did you get these bruises?" And they just kept asking me those questions, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to say. I remember telling them, I'm not ready to talk about it, but they knew. They knew that it was Corey. I don't remember everything from the first 5 to 7 days that I was at the hospital. I was slipping in and out of consciousness, out of it on medications. I remember, it might have been the surgeon, I'm not for sure, leaning into me and saying, "We are going to take you for emergency brain surgery, and then we will do a scan. And if we aren't able to fix it, we'll take you to surgery again in the morning." And it was just the strangest thing I've ever experienced because I couldn't feel anything in that moment. I couldn't even feel fear. I couldn't ask questions. It was like just completely being paralyzed. One of my next memories was my friend coming in, and she said, "You need to press charges." She knew that it was him. I had confided in her. And so I said, okay. I think there was still a part of me that was holding on, which is normal. You want the person that hurts you to heal you. And then next thing I knew, 2 detectives were there, and they sat me up in a chair, and I told them that it was Corey. I don't think that I was able to wrap my head around it, what he had done. Still to this day, I have not fully wrapped my head around what he did to me. I think that there was a part of me that thought that maybe this was an eye-opener for him and that it would, push him to change. But the truth is, somebody who is capable of hurting somebody month after month after month, and the scan showed it wasn't the first brain bleed on that Sunday. Love is not leaving bruises on somebody. It's not pushing somebody. It's not choking somebody. It's not sexual assault. I experienced sexual assault for a second time by Corey. We have to find a way as victims to find the strength to leave. The longer that we stay, the longer that it will take to heal. Corey was arrested on 2 different occasions. He was arrested a second time when I was in a position where I could give more information to the police. He spent about 3 weeks in jail, and they let him out. And that was the start of this terrible, unjust system that victims have to deal with. It took almost a year for them to finally set a trial date. It didn't go to trial. They did a plea deal. Corey agreed to do up to 9 years in prison and pay restitution. At sentencing, the judge reduced it to 5 years. This was after Corey asked for probation, stating that he is in a healthy relationship now, that he has turned to God, and that he is a reliable employee. I gave my victim impact statement. Pictures were shown. He only had to post $800 to get out. I was not aware ahead of time that was even a possibility that he would be able to post bond and do an appeal. So now he's out again. Corey has not reached out to me. I think that he is terrified of prison. I'm assuming at some point in time he will reach out to me. I don't know when that will be. I decided to start sharing my story because I don't want other people to go through this. I am hoping that I can help other victims to take a step back, try to take a breath, look at their relationship objectively, seek help, and become free from the abuse. For anyone out there who is in an abusive relationship, I know how difficult it is to take those steps to leave. I want you to know that there are people who will stand behind you, people who will advocate for you, that you deserve to be with somebody who loves you, who takes care of you, somebody that you feel safe with. I really believe that we can make a difference. We can get out of these situations. It's time to take a stand against domestic violence. We all deserve to be loved in the right way.